think we are live, lads. Sorry about that. Really sorry about those issues. Just then, my OBS was crashing. There were issues with the microphone as well, but we've got them sorted. That's why I wanted to restart the stream, just so because there was something clearly not right. So we're back again. We're back. Let me just make sure you can guys all hear me and see me before we actually get straight into things. How is everybody doing? I can see Proby in the chat, N17 Stu. Right, I think we're good. I think we're good, lads. Okay, right. Sorry about that. Hello. I think you guys are with me. Can you guys hear me and see me, yeah? How is everybody doing? How is everyone? Yep, all good. Perfect. Okay, great. Great. Sorry about that, guys. I was having some issues before with OBS. The software basically that I used to do these streams kept crashing. So we're back. We are back. And let's get straight into it. Sunday overtime double pay, exactly. Streaming for you guys on a Sunday. Right. Let's get into things. So let's go. Tottenham lost their first pre-season game of the summer, going 2-1 down to Bayern Munich. Oh, that was rubbish. Sorry, guys. I'm gonna cut that. I'm gonna cut that out and start again. Tottenham lost their first pre-season game of the summer to Bayern Munich 2-1 in Korea. The Asian tour is over for Tottenham, and we have suffered our first loss to Bayern Munich. Some familiar faces. Harry Kane, of course, wasn't there. Eric Dyer was there for Bayern, and we play them again and get our chance to get our revenge in a week's time at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. Make sure, before we get into the video, make sure you subscribe to the channel, make sure you like the stream, make sure you like the video if you're watching this after the stream, and we'll get straight into it. But before we do that, I just want to say a big thank you for hitting the 2,000 subscriber milestone on YouTube. Wouldn't be possible without you guys. I massively appreciate it all so much. Thank you so much for getting involved and getting behind the channel. What we're going to talk about in this video then, we're going to talk about how Spurs set up against Bayern. We're going to talk about Lucas Bergvall in a lot of detail, as you could probably tell from the thumbnail. He is one step ahead, and I think he is making his way into contention to start that first Premier League game against Leicester on the first game of the season. Let me know what you think about that in the comments below. We're going to go through what I think the team should be for that game, but before we do that, we're going to talk about the goals we conceded yesterday. We're going to talk about the problems that we had dealing with Bayern's press. We're going to talk about what got better in the second half and why that got better. We're going to talk about Yves Bissouma. We're going to talk about a lot of things. I want to talk about James Maddison as well. I guess that kind of goes in conjunction with the Lucas Bergvall conversation, because I think it's Maddison's spot that Bergvall could potentially end up taking at the start of the season. Archie Gray, we're going to talk about him. He struggled yesterday. We're going to talk about Jed Spence, who kind of had a bit of a game of two halves. Again, guys, let me know your thoughts in the chat, of course, on everything in the comments below. Robert, thank you very much for that. I appreciate that, mate. Right, let's get straight into things then. So this is how Tottenham set up. This is how Tottenham started the game. We started with Vicario in goal, Dragusin and Davis at the back. Dragusin's first start of pre-season. I did think he looked a little bit rusty, to be honest. But again, he's hardly really had any game time. He had about 20 minutes in the last game. Davis was the other centre-back. Porro and Spence. Jed Spence's first start of pre-season playing out of position. And we'll come on to talk about Spence. And I think partly why he struggled was because he was playing out of position. Again, it's a new role for him, kind of coming to those things. Archie Gray, who again, I thought struggled yesterday a little bit, if we're being honest. Pat Matasar, again, who didn't have his best game, and James Maddison, who certainly didn't. It wasn't Tottenham's best pre-season game all round, to be honest, but I think there are reasons for that. Ange Postecoglou came out after the game and sort of spoke about the fact that he's worked these players into the ground, really. They've kind of got everything out of them that he wanted. And I think it was maybe just one game too many for some of these players, especially in the conditions, especially in the heat as well. And look, you can't make excuses for poor performances, but it is only in pre-season. And I think a week off now for Spurs. There's been a lot of games in the space of the last couple of weeks, and we go again against Bayern next Saturday. Obviously, it was a fairly strong team for Bayern as well. Kim and Jay at the back, Stanisic, Guerrero and Sasha Bowie, who was really impressive yesterday for Bayern, Gnabry, Müller, Matthias Tell, Pavlovic and Kimmich. Pavlovic was kind of a breakout star for them in their Champions League campaign last year, so this was a strong Bayern Munich side, for sure. And this was the team that finished the game, so we had a lot of changes, obviously, from both sides. That's more how we set up. We'll come on to that in a sec. This is kind of how both teams finished. So it was wholesale changes, obviously. Austin, Emerson and Skip were the two final centre-backs for Tottenham. I thought Emerson actually had quite a decent game. He did play a part in Bayern's second goal that I want to talk about as well. Jamie Donnelly George Abbott, this was actually came on. Sorry, I apologise for that. Abbott came on as well for Porro. Alfie Devine, who I thought was good. Yves Bissouma and Lucas Bergvall made a massive difference for Tottenham. And then this is the front three that we've kind of been ending the games with in the last few. Werner, Lancashire, and Mikey Moore. It was interesting. Mikey Moore and Werner swapped wings a lot. We saw them doing that in the last game, and I think they're trying to see what Mikey Moore is about on this left-hand side. And again, Mikey Moore, that's someone where he is more comfortable. And look, the Bayern team that ended the game was far less experienced. But the reason I want to give Bergvall so much praise is if you look at this midfield for Bayern in that second half. Lima, Paulinho and Goretzka. Konrad Lima was excellent for them in the Champions League last year. Paulinho, big new signing. And Goretzka, we know the quality, obviously, he scored the goal. That was the midfield that this lad had on strings, if we're being honest. He was absolutely superb. Look, don't get me wrong, Bayern were good. Goretzka got his goal. But Bergvall was absolutely excellent. And we'll come on and talk about Bergvall shortly. We've got a lot of screenshots to show you, as usual, in this analysis. But we have actually, what I wanted to highlight is, so what's been frustrating over the last few weeks is that SofaScore, for some of the Spurs games, we haven't been able to see average positions. We haven't been able to see stuff like that. And we haven't really been able to see in-depth stats for some of these players, because I think it does tell you a lot. These were the average positions for Tottenham yesterday. Again, you can definitely see that Spurs are trying to almost build up in this 3-2-5. I think Jed Spence was definitely not as comfortable inverting in that first half, but I think he got better in terms of in possession in the second half. He was struggling to get into those central areas, and it kind of left us a bit exposed in midfield, really. There weren't as many passing lanes, and we got caught by their press a lot of the time. And this was the midfield. Again, it was fairly congested. Archie Gray maybe not dropping as deep as we thought he was going to. But again, it looked a little bit more, I was going to say it looks a bit more structured in the second half. It looks a bit all over the place in terms of the attack. We did try and target their left-hand side for sure. There was a lot of combination play down the right-hand side. But again, this is kind of skewed by the fact that Mikey Moore and Werner did change wings quite a lot. And I think we did look more defensively solid as well in that second half, with Bissouma coming on, just being that bit more of an anchor, getting that a little bit deeper, and being able to help out the defence, which we didn't really have in that first half. We just looked a little bit more comfortable there for sure. So let's get into it. Let's come to the chat first before we get into some of the analysis. First, I want to start off with the Bayern goal, and I want to talk about the first half in general because we really did struggle. And like I said, I think there are reasons for that. I think fatigue plays a massive factor, which is something I believe Robert said there. Ange put the game into proper perspective. The fatigue involved, 100%. As well, Sui said Jed looked better when Biss was playing at the 6. They combine very well. Totally agree, and we've got some examples of that too. Geyser says, I still think Bergvall will be young player of the season. Not changed my mind in the last few minutes. Well, we'll come on to Bergvall. So let's get into things now. Geyser there says Paulinho bullied us last season. He didn't do that to Bergvall. Exactly. So let's get into some of the bits I want to show you. So this was the first goal. This was the first goal, and there's a lot to pick out here. Obviously, Spence, like I said, Spence did look a little bit uncomfortable, kind of inverting and receiving the ball, but he always wanted to get on it. It's just maybe he wasn't kind of in tune with the right areas that, Porro picks up so easily. But this was an example of what Spence actually did do quite well in the first half. Unfortunately, just gets caught out. But for me, this isn't on Spence. So we move it forward. Vicario has the ball. Spence comes into that number 6 position, which we know the fullbacks will do. We know one midfielder will go in there in that kind of 3-2-5 in build-up. Spence is the one, but he's got a man right behind him, and he ends up losing it, and they end up scoring from that. And I think, let me just move Vicario back into sort of the frame here. Yeah. Vicario there, you can see, if I move myself, you can see there aren't many options for Vicario. So in that instance, you kind of have to almost move away from the commitment to the principles of playing out from the back and just be a bit smarter and just clip that long. Like I said, there aren't really too many options for him. It's good that Spence wants to come in there because it also does drag a man away, which means that Vicario can clip it into that space. Again, we can't see who's occupying a bit further forward. The camera angle doesn't show that, but I think Vicario's just got to be a bit smarter there and clip that in because he knows that Spence has got a man coming in behind him. He is just about let the ball go there, Vicario. And I can't remember who this is, who's right on Spence already. And we did really, really struggle in the first half. We really did. But I think Vicario has just got. I think he's just got to go. I think he's just got to go long there. Got to go long. And Bayern, they didn't really let us out, to be honest. They dominated us in that first half. In terms of possession, they had 60% of it. They just kind of had us hemmed in. In the second half, Spurs swung the possession back in our favour with 55%. But Bayern were all over us, let's be honest. And again, this was a good test for Tottenham. I think we saw some poor defending, or maybe kind of overcommitment to some of these principles that got us in trouble a little bit with some of the passing out from the back, maybe. But I actually thought some of our box defending was quite good when we were under pressure and did get into positions where we were under the pump. But let me know what you think about that in the chat, guys. So they attacked us down the left-hand side a lot with Tell. Tell here getting a shot away, Vicario with the block. And again, what I wanted to highlight here is the fact that Vicario makes the save. We just couldn't get it out. Son tries to play it into Maddison there. Maddison can't quite get it under control. It evades him. I think Maddison is really struggling at the moment. Really, really struggling. I don't know whether it's the pressure, feeling the pressure maybe. Again, this isn't necessarily Maddison's fault, but I do want to talk about James Maddison. And I think we'll do that when we come on to Lucas Bergvall. But again, we lose the ball and they're able to recycle and just go again. Actually, Porro gets the block off this time. It is quite good one-on-one defending to stop it. And again, it was just wave after wave of attack. Again, kind of moving from right to left. Cutting inside there. Getting the shot away, which just goes wide. Again, it was just wave after wave. Able to create these overloads in these channels. I think Spence did struggle in that first half. In terms of defending, he was maybe a little bit narrow. Obviously, he's not really a left back. And Gnabry was causing him all sorts of problems with Sasha Bowie on the overlap as well. For sure. And Gnabry, again, curls this one just wide. Again, kind of creating these overloads in the channels. Not really tracking the runner. And again, that overload at the back post. Spence gets caught, wanting to go to the striker in Vidovic, who was the player that got the first goal. And again, they're just free at the back post. And this time it goes wide. Again, Porro gives the ball away here, trying to play through the lines. And they just turn us over. Their press was so relentless. And again, they get the chance away here. The shot comes in straight at the goalkeeper this time for Vicario to save. But Bayern were all over us in that first half. They were. It was Spurs kind of got the run around. We got dog walked a little bit. But again, I think it's about putting it in perspective. I think this has been a long pre-season in a very hot climate for Spurs. And again, some people aren't going to want to hear that in terms of making excuses. But Ange Postecoglou said it himself. It almost feels like it was maybe one game too many for some of these boys. Because Bayern were all over us and they showed their class. And like I said, if we go back to the team that started that first half for Bayern, you've got some real talent in there. Pavlovic and Kimmich in midfield are much more experienced, or Kimmich certainly is, than someone like Archie Gray. Pat Matasar, I think, struggled. Although there were moments in that first half where Spurs were able to break out and get chances. And this was one of them. And this is what Pat Matasar does really well. And I think when it comes to that midfield and that first opening game of the season against Leicester, I know Sarr did struggle yesterday, but I think he's got to play in there just for that balance and also that ability in transition to get you up the pitch quickly and just nip in and make little tackles like this, because he gets a toe on the ball there, gets a foot on it, and we're able to go. We're able to break. Let me just move my my camera. And we were under the pump for a lot of that first half. So these transitional moments were very much needed for Spurs. I think he makes the right decision in the end. Johnson, I think, needs to get on his bike a little bit more. But he decides he's able to shrug off Kimmich and then come inside and play it into Kulusevski. Kulusevski yesterday, let me know your thoughts on Kulu's performance in the chat. Obviously, Spurs are very heavily linked with the number 9, Dominic Solanke, who missed Bournemouth's pre-season game today with an injury. Is he on his way to Spurs? Who knows? But I think Kulu's yesterday, I think his physicality was very helpful. I don't think he had a lot of service, to be honest. And when he did get this chance, he obviously wasn't able to make it count. But what I think we did see is if you are able to get Kulusevski in these positions, we've talked about it a lot in pre-season with the sort of goals and the chances that he has had. On that left foot, he's composed, he feints to come inside and then goes on the outside again of Kim Min-jae and the shot is blocked. So this is for me why Sarr is in there. When Spurs are able to get up the pitch, his pressing, his relentlessness, his ability to nip in and kind of make these tackles and set you on the counter-attack, I think is key for Pat Matasar. Things changed in the second half for sure for Spurs, but we did go 2-0 down. Bissouma, who I want to talk about in detail shortly. I think let's talk about Bissouma now. I think Bissouma struggled in the first 5 or 6 minutes of the game, 5-10 minutes maybe, to kind of get up with the pace. And he gave the ball away here. There was a couple of times where he gave the ball away a little bit sloppily. Yves Bissouma, and one of them was here. And I think that's always going to happen with the kind of risk averse or sort of risky way that we play. And obviously Bissouma, I think, emphasises that. He gets caught here. Let me just try and move this up a little bit. And I think the problem here is the lack of composure in the defending that comes next. And I think this is why I'm not too worried about our defence kind of going into the season, because a lot of people have talked about the fact that we have been vulnerable so far in pre-season, which we have defensively. We have conceded goals. I think against Team K-League, there was a lot of times where they were able to get in behind us and kind of pull us all over the place. And there are a couple of examples I wanted to show that against Bayern here. But if Spurs give the ball away in these positions in the Premier League, it's not going to be Emerson diving in and making these rash tackles. Emerson just dives in. And actually, like I said, I thought Emerson had quite a good game yesterday. I think he helped us out defensively. But he just dives in there and makes quite a rash challenge. And then, look, they're away. And look at the players that they've got swarming forward. Tell drives forward. He's able to cut inside again. Sorry, let me just move my big, fat head. And they've got a man over. And again, Spurs there are going to be moments where we find ourselves in these kind of positions in the season. And Goretzka has the shot. Vicario makes the save. And again, maybe we just don't react quick enough to the danger on the rebound, but Goretzka is able to slot it in and make it 2-0. Again, there were a couple more moments. I've got a few examples here of Bayern getting in behind. That pass there. Emerson again kind of overcommits maybe, and the space is left there. And again, the shot is saved. Again, it's not just because we're watching it in the same stadium as the last game, but it feels very familiar to kind of some of the issues that we maybe saw against Team K-League. But look, there were a lot of positives to talk about with Spurs yesterday as well, which I want to get onto. And the first place I want to start is Jed Spence, actually. Because Jed Spence, I think, struggled. Definitely struggled in the first half. I think maybe a little bit hesitant in his defending in some instances. This was the first minute, and again, maybe that comes from kind of playing on the wrong side. And we've got that example here. Let's go to the chat quickly before we go through that, because we've got a lot of comments. And thank you all so much. You can get your super chats in as well if you want to ask me a question. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. Make sure to like the stream and like the video as well. If you're watching this after, this will be up on the channel for you guys to watch if you're not able to make it live. But like I said, we will be doing these streams live next season or this coming season. Usually the day after the game, the Premier League games, the Europa League games. That's going to continue for sure. Skinny Fat Huey says Spence needs to do better. Yes, I do agree with that, but I think Spence's kind of little remontada has almost been one of the highlights of this pre-season. I think we definitely saw that in this game as well. Bram there says Spence has been great. He was way less comfortable on the left, and I think that's definitely what we saw here. So let's get on to that. So they're able to clip a ball over the top here, Bayern. And again, we talked about Spence's kind of struggles in possession or in terms of playing out from the back. But there was a couple of defensive moments as well. The ball gets clipped to the back post. He's just quite hesitant here to get out to Gnabry, and then Gnabry ends up getting the shot off. And there were a few more examples as well with Spence. And I think we saw that obviously with the first goal. It's not his fault, but I think there were other moments in that first half where he just wasn't able to kind of read the right positions to be in, maybe. And again, that comes from playing on the wrong side as well. But I think he definitely had a much, much better second half. And let's talk about that here. So Bissouma or Sarr there drifts inside. Ball comes back to Emerson, who's able to sort of drive forward with it. And Spence, this is what I like about Spence in terms of an attacking sense in that inverted fullback role, because he has got the strength and technical ability to get himself out of tight situations. Let's move this across and let's put me up here in the corner. That's me in the corner. That's me in the Spence slide, losing my inverted fullback. Again, he's able to wriggle away and burst forward, and that's what I love from Jed Spence in that second half. I think we saw a lot of that, and I definitely think it was kind of a game of two halves for him. And there was a lot better moments that came in the second half, and I think a lot of that was to do with Jed Spence's confidence and ability. I think with Jed Spence, a bit like Yves Bissouma, who I kind of want to come on and talk about in a sec, I think a lot of it is confidence-based, a lot of it is mental. The ability is definitely there. It's just kind of getting over those mistakes and getting over those hiccups and going again. And I think we definitely saw that from Yves Bissouma in the second half, because like I said, he started a bit sloppily, But he was able to recover and able to be really, really important for Spurs in that second half next season. Robert in the chat there says, was a good test for Spence. Probably doesn't read the game as well as top fullbacks, but hopefully that will come. Again, Spence is so young. Spence is so young. So, well, he's not a teenager. He's not a kid by any means. But in terms of his footballing career, it's still a lot to learn, a lot to go. And Paul Bean, yeah, so he has a crazy redemption story. Proby, appreciate the super chat, the potato coming in, my man. And Paul says, I think Spence should be part of the squad this year. We saw those quotes from Ange Postecoglou, and I definitely think he is going to be a part of the squad, which is great. So great for Spence. Spence is physically impressive, and I never realised how big he is, 100%. And he gets going like a steam train, really, Jed Spence, and he's very hard to stop. And I've got a couple more examples of that I wanted to talk about as well. But let's talk about how Spurs looked in terms of the build-up and maybe some of what those struggles were. So this was kind of what it looked like a little bit to me, or sort of what it should look like. So obviously we have Gray. We've talked a lot about how the fact that Spurs want to build up in a 3-2-5, and I think we saw that again. Gray was definitely maybe the more deeper midfielder, but again, as you can see from the average positions, maybe he wasn't doing that quite enough. I think that's probably what his role was, but I don't think we maybe saw it enough. If you look at Gray there compared to Yves Bissouma in that second half, he definitely makes up that three at the back. And I think that's maybe where we struggled a little bit when it came to the pressing. We kind of didn't have that extra man in there, and we weren't able to play out with that kind of 1-2 touch combination play, because that six, if you like, maybe wasn't getting into these positions as much to pick it up of the goalkeeper. And that changed massively in the second half when we had Bissouma and Bergvall come on, and this is why I want to talk about the fact that is we'll come on and do this conversation a bit later as well, but that is my starting 11 for Spurs for the first game of the season. I think obviously it depends on fitness. I think maybe Destiny Doggy might have to come out for Jed Spence, and I think that's maybe why he played Spence at left back yesterday, because he wants to get him some minutes in there. Obviously, a Doggy hasn't played a minute in pre-season yet, but in an ideal world, I think it's Destiny a Doggy. I just think this midfield balance is so much better for Spurs, so much better. With Bissouma coming in there, I think Bissouma's had a great pre-season. Again, some sloppy moments. We'll talk about Bissouma in a bit more detail in a sec. But that there, for me, just looks so much better. And again, you have rotation in between these two with Sarr coming in and making that box. Then you've got this attack here. Bergvall almost as that floating more of a number 10. Again, I think what's lovely about it is that Bergvall can be the one that comes in here. Bissouma can be the one that pushes on a little bit more. You've got Kulu dropping in a bit deeper. And then you've got runners in behind with Johnson and Son. But again, we'll come on and talk about that. I want to do a whole stream, actually, guys, on my first starting 11 of the season against Leicester. So watch out for that. We're going to do that as a kind of an actual stream, and I'll get you guys involved. So I don't want to go into it too much, but we can come back to that. I just think with what Bissouma and Bergvall offer in terms of that rotation, we just didn't quite see that from Gray yet. But again, and that's why I think Archie Gray, I think, will be a great rotation option at centre-back, because he has proved himself that he is comfortable in that role. And I think it's going to take him a bit more time to get used to the speed of the Premier League, maybe, and a game against the top side there where he kind of did struggle a little bit. Maybe we just didn't see that confidence and bravery, potentially, that we saw from Bergvall in that second half. But look, Archie Gray has been absolutely phenomenal. I just think if it was now, I think I'd go with Bissouma and I'd go with Bergvall in midfield alongside Pat Matasar. And again, Sarr didn't have his best game yesterday, but I think he brings that balance and, like what we talked about, that engine and that ability to counter-attack. So that's kind of how I see it. This is sort of how, again, if we go back, this was sort of the build-up for Spurs yesterday. And I think, again, Spence in the first half was very much more sticking out here. And I think Porro and Gray maybe became a bit more isolated in that build-up. There wasn't this ball out necessarily that we've been seeing. Well, obviously, we saw Spurs get caught out with from the goal. Let me just see if I can do this. Obviously, it's not working. Spurs want to play the ball into here. Actually, let me see if it probably is better with the Bayern team. If we just drag everyone back a little bit. Kulu and then Johnson and so on. If Bayern are pressing, and their pressing was excellent yesterday, we saw them getting kind of right in our faces. And look, this is a very well-drilled team. I think one thing I definitely noticed yesterday with Bayern was Vincent Kompany has actually got his methods across quite quickly. Look, this is a very good side, a very, very good side with Bayern. And I think people are kind of almost underrating this Kompany appointment a little bit. I do think that, and I think it's very clear that he's got his methods. You saw him screaming on the touchline a lot yesterday. And I think, again, they made it very difficult for Spurs to play out. And I think one thing that we didn't see enough was Gray maybe coming into here to receive it. I think Spence, the couple of times he did it, it didn't look quite as comfortable. And I think he hung out to the left a lot. And again, look, Spence has got a lot to deal with defensively because he's got Gnabry and Sacha Boey, who were doubling up, and Davis was struggling, and Spence was struggling from a defensive aspect. But that improved a lot in the second half when this was the team that finished the game. But if I bring on Spence for Donnelly, I think you definitely saw Spence getting into these positions a lot more and being comfortable on the ball. And I think Bissouma massively aided him in that. But yeah, we'll come back to the team that finished the game shortly. So let's bring Donnelly back on. So let's talk about what got better in the second half. Let's go to the chat before we do that. And again, make sure to like the stream. Make sure to get your comments in, get your super chats in as well. Alistair McAllister says, really like Bergvall. It is more of an 8 than a 10. He gets stuck in, wins possession. That is definitely something we're going to talk about. Sammy, how you doing, my friend? Yash says, the issue with Spence was his position in the midfield and in the defence, which was because he was on the left rather than right, and he's very much coachable and getting used to the system. Absolutely. We're going to talk about Spence in the second half now. Robert says, to be fair, it seemed like Gray never had great options when he did look up. Still gave the ball away, though, and you need to sort that out when the options aren't there. 100%, mate. I do agree with that. I do think that maybe Maddison wasn't offering him that pass so much. I don't think Sarr was maybe offering him that pass when he did drop in there. But I think Bergvall and Bissouma, I noticed it straight away from the QPR game. I loved that midfield balance that we saw. That was the midfield that started that game, Bissouma, Sarr and Bergvall. And that's been in my head ever since. And I think Bissouma and Bergvall have got this little relationship already, which I think we saw a lot of yesterday. And Harry says they kind of have to start. But so, what got better for Spurs in the second half then? Because there was a lot. We obviously had the chance. We obviously had the chance with Sarr going through, which I'm not going to talk about in here, but Eric Dyer, of all people, kind of gives the ball away to Sonny, and we're able to get a chance off there. Bergvall had a chance. Kulusevski had a chance, which we're going to talk about here. So immediately, this kind of build-up looks a bit better. And look, the second half is kind of better to caveat it with the fact that it was kind of played at maybe a bit more of a pedestrian pace, maybe. I think that suited Spurs a little bit more. Bayern's press in the first half was excellent and really nullified us. And they made more changes in that second half. So whereas Spurs kind of staggered their changes all through the game, whereas Bayern, I think, made more changes at half-time. But again, it was a complete new midfield for Bayern of Goretzka, Lima and Paulinho, and that's why I was really encouraged about the fact that we were able to play through that quite easily. So Emerson there, back to Vicario. Let me just move myself over here, over there. Oh, I'll just hit that. Sorry, there we go. And Davis into Spence. Again, Spence kind of dropping in a little bit deeper, just popping that pass back to Vicario. But again, Spence wants it back. He comes back in there. And again, you can see from the positioning that he's finding himself in a lot more comfortable areas when receiving the ball. I think whether that was a direction from Ange Postecoglou at half-time, maybe, we won't know. But again, little one-touch pass around the corner into Bissouma there. Bissouma, I thought, other than a few sloppy moments with giving the ball away, and we already talked about that for the goal, I thought it was excellent. And again, just what Bissouma is so good at, is his ability to play in tight spaces, and we saw that here. Pops it off to Spence. And one thing about Spence, whether he's going to play on the right or the left in this inverted fullback system, again, it might well be the left on the first game of the season if Destiny Udogie is not back up to full fitness yet, is when Spurs are able to kind of knit together nice bits of play here. Let me move this over. Spence is such an excellent ball carrier that look how far he carries the ball here. You're 25, 30 yards away from goal there. And again, look at the options he's got ahead of him. He's got runners in Johnson, Kulusevski and Son, and Sarr joining him as well. He does go out to Sonny. Sonny's able to cut inside. He has the shot blocked, but he's able to win it back off Lima there and just get that little poke. And it falls to Kulusevski, who's just able to get the shot off, and it goes wide. And again, that would have been 2-1. That would have been 2-1 straight away, basically, in the second half. Again, you can see forces the goalkeeper there into a bit of trouble, and he makes a save. I think a lot of those changes, a lot of the better play in the second half came from the fact that we had Bergvall and Bissouma on the pitch, and I think they're so important to Spurs already. Nordiak there says Eze, Bergvall, Bissouma. I mean, that would be a lovely, lovely sight. I do think there's still a chance that we could end up with a Berry Eze, but we shall see. I think it's going to be a big week in the transfer market for Spurs. And like I said, guys, I do a lot of these streams. So what I usually do in the mornings, in the weekdays, is I stream. We talk about transfer bits. We talk about kind of any other bits, but this is more of a tactical breakdown. So make sure to subscribe for that. I'll be live tomorrow morning to talk through the latest transfer bits and any other business really with Spurs, because I'm sure there'll be some movement potentially today, or tomorrow. So that, I thought that was a lot better, and I think again you can see an example of their Spence getting into better areas. Bradley Snow says, I know it has looked sloppy here and there, but our midfield depth is so good right now. I agree. I think you've got Bentancur to come back as well into the mix. Spurs might sign another midfielder as well. So we shall see. Daryl says Bissouma had a moment where he split two players. I've not seen that from him since Arsenal last year. It was thrilling. Yet I think Bissouma, to be fair, towards the end of the season last year, and let's talk about Bissouma now. We'll talk about Bergvall after this, and obviously we'll talk about the goal for Spurs, which was a cracking strike from Pedro Porro. So make sure to stay tuned for that. To be fair, there's not much to analyse from the goal other than the fact that it was a beauty. Yes, so other than a few poor moments from Bissouma, I thought he was very good. And again here, I think this is an example of kind of him knitting the play together with Spence. Sarr there into Bissouma. This is actually, that's not that actually. This is, Bissouma loses the ball here. Again, what you kind of see the best and maybe the worst of Bissouma kind of here in this moment. And I just seen a comment saying another podcast said Bissouma had a stinky yesterday. Unbelievable. I can't get my head around that geyser either. So Bissouma here, under pressure from, I think that's Goretzka. Goretzka has a nibble. Bissouma, again, somehow managed to get away from him. Actually, that might be Palhinha, because Goretzka is the one that wins the second challenge. So it's just one too many maybe from Bissouma, and he gets caught. And look, Spurs are in a vulnerable position here. That's not Tell. That was Iran Kunda, the young Australian winger, I believe. And maybe it was Tell. Maybe Tell hadn't come off by this time yet. He's able to isolate Emerson 1v1. But what I love about Bissouma, again, I think, like I said, what we often talk about with Bissouma is the mental aspect of it. And his ability there in pre-season just to come back and just read it and get that interception, and Emerson is able to shepherd it back to the goalkeeper. So Bissouma makes a mistake, but he corrects it, which is great. Again, Bissouma here, nice passing through the lines into Sarr there. Look, he's got a pass on to Spence here, but again, another good example of the fact that Spence is able to, was more comfortable in that second half, getting into the right areas to receive the ball in that inverted role. But he breaks the lines and finds Sarr. Again here, line-breaking pass out to Alfie Devine. Let's talk about the Porro goal quickly, because Bissouma is involved in that as well. And that there, I've kind of gone on one screenshot too many. It all comes from, again, a line-breaking sort of pass from Bissouma. Spurs, Sonny is fouled there, but the ref decides to play on. Bissouma splits the lines with a lovely ball there. Kind of takes out two players. And Porro again. It's just a great strike, isn't it? But if we go back to... and again, let's talk about Porro quickly, because I think we've seen Pedro Porro pick up some really interesting positions so far in pre-season. Obviously, he got that goal against Vissel Kobe, where Kulusevski flicked around the corner from him. I think Pedro Porro is so brilliant when he's in the final third, and we've come to know that, whether it was at right wing back under Conte, getting to the back post and getting on the end of things, or whether it's been kind of in build-up and in possession under Postecoglou. This inverted fullback role suits him down to the ground, and I actually think that he's improved his one-on-one defending a lot. So when he does go back the other way, he's actually a much more well-rounded defender than he was as well. But if you can get Pedro Porro into these positions as much as possible, because I don't know what it is about Vincent Kompany, whether it's Burnley or Bayern Munich, he's able to get those strikes off so brilliantly, and he smashes that towards the goal, and it's a brilliant strike. And I think, again, we've seen so many examples in pre-season. We saw it in the last game against Team K-League, had a shot saved from the edge of the box, which Johnson couldn't quite follow up from the rebound. That could potentially, I'm not saying he's going to score 5 or 10 screamers a season, but I think with the licence that he has and the quality that he's got in the final third, I think Porro, you're looking at maybe 10, 15 potentially goal contributions in the Premier League or all competitions next season. So, absolutely superb. Look, guys, I know you're waiting for me to talk about Lucas Bergvall, but that is coming. That is coming. We're going to kind of finish with Bergvall and then go on to kind of a final summary, and then looking ahead to Leicester. I know we've got another game against Bayern, but there are some things here that I do want to see against Leicester, and a lot of them involve Bergvall. Yeah, so Bissouma again takes those two players out of the game with that pass for Pedro Porro, as you can see again there. And again, just another example of breaking the lines into Bergvall. I think that relationship that they've got is really interesting so far in pre-season, for sure. So this is what I've been waiting for, guys. Lucas Bergvall. And let me know in the chat. I'm going to put a poll in the chat now. So make sure to get in and vote on that on YouTube. Should Lucas Bergvall start versus Leicester? Simple yes or no on the poll in the chat. because I think that he should. I think that he's one step ahead of the play. I think he's proved that throughout pre-season. I think he's been absolutely excellent. Absolutely excellent. This guy sums up the kind of fearlessness that these youngsters play with. He's just 18 years old. And look, Bergvall is kind of sharp coming into this pre-season, right? He's obviously, I don't think the Swedish season maybe finished until after the English one. He's effectively almost maybe had 2 pre-seasons because of how, well, it certainly looks like it, how sharp he is. He's been absolutely fantastic. So let's talk about him. And again, you guys vote away in the chat. I can see 89% of people yes, 90% of people yes. Bradley Snow says Bissouma, Bergvall, Maddison. Again, we'll come on and talk about that at the end. I think Bergvall did a lot of things that Maddison did not do yesterday as that number 8. I don't think you get the same defensive work rate that you do with Bergvall from Maddison, but also the payoff in terms of the quality that Bergvall has got in the attacking third as well, I think shows that he is ready, and I think Maddison should be very concerned kind of going into the season. And maybe the reason for the poor performances with Maddison is that he's looking at these younger players in training, whether it's Mikey Moore, whether it's Lucas Bergvall potentially, and thinking, there's a lot of pressure on me. And again, those links to Abere Eze as well. So yeah, without further ado, let's talk about it. Bergvall, first example here. He's kind of playing as that further forward midfielder. Spots the danger, cuts out the pass. Again here, from Emerson Royale. Wants to receive the ball in that position. He knows he's got a man coming behind him. Always scanning, always scanning, always scanning. You can see that from the thumbnail. That's why I wanted to highlight that. He's one step ahead of the player a lot of the time. His footballing intelligence is brilliant. He is kind of a footballing unicorn in the aspects that he can do everything. Defensive combatability, work rate, quality, awareness. He's just fantastic, Lucas Bergvall. Again here, I think as Lima gets tight to him. And he's just able to shrug him off and get away and win a foul. His physicality for someone that looks quite slight is quite impressive. Look, I know we're all Spurs fans here, but I think it's quite easy to compare him to Martin Odegaard, because I think Odegaard has almost got that deceptive strength about him as well as that beautiful elegance in the play. And I think that's very much what we're seeing with Bergvall. Again here, just in there to read the danger. Again here, you can see, I've highlighted the screenshot on purpose, that he's not looking, he's scanning. Gets the ball into feet and just pops it off. Again, you get to see his engine here. So again, some people in the chat are kind of saying that Bergvall should maybe be the 8 instead of Saad. I think he has got that engine as well. Look here, just able to carry the ball up the pitch. He's a monster and draws the foul. Again, that's the second foul drawn from that Bayern Munich midfield. The first one from Lima, the first one from Goretzka. Here again, you can't quite see him yet in the frame. Vicario there, trust him. Again, bit of a heavy touch there from Bergvall actually, but he's able to hold off Paulinho again there, and look at then the space he's able to open up in the pitch and get that pass away. If you just take that back, spend a bit more time on that, because he gets the ball into feet. It is not, like I said, it's not a great touch from Bergvall here, but the strength to just hold off João Paulinho, João Paulinho, one of the best defensive midfielders in the world, we're talking about here. And he's just able to bully him. And look at the space that he opens up for Spurs. And he's got runners ahead of him. I think it's Brennan Johnson he sprays the pass out to. It's absolutely excellent. And again, when you're talking about Bergvall kind of in transition, he's had a few of these moments kind of in pre-season so far. Let me just take that back and let's just move the frame actually. You can't actually even see him in the frame, so he's not arrived yet. But the space is there. Good amount of players in the box from Spurs. The cutback comes to Bergvall. And again, he can't quite sort his feet out here. You maybe want him to potentially strike it first time. But the shot gets blocked. He does have another chance, though, which comes here. And I'll come to your comments in a sec, guys. I just want to highlight this first. And then we'll get on to the rest of the Bergvall stuff. Let me move my big ad. Apologies for keeping moving my head. Hopefully it's not too distracting. Porro here, you can see Bergvall, he's actually in an offside position there, but he gets back. Porro sees him. This is what I mean. Bergvall is able to kind of pick up these positions. There's so much fluidity in that midfield. And he's able to get forward as that furthest number 8. And again here, what I love about the chance is that it's actually, you feel like the chance is kind of going. But again, combatability, physical. Bergvall gets in there. Wins the tackle. Not afraid to get stuck in and gets the shot away and just puts it wide. So unlucky. let's come to some of your comments, guys, and then we'll finish up on Bergvall. Here, Bergvall is 100% a 10. 84% of you guys think that Bergvall should start the first game of the season. I'm going to end the poll there. And again, thanks so much for the support in the chat, guys. I appreciate it. Make sure to like the stream. 44 people voted. We've currently got 119 people viewing this right now. So make sure you come and get involved when I do these live. N17 Shoe says, let's get behind Maddison. We don't need a scapegoat. I get your point, mate. I think Spurs fans have this self-deprecating nature where we need to put our players down all the time. I think what I'm doing here is just simply, it's just criticism. Look, I just think that Maddison, he was a big money buy. He's not exempt from that. I don't think we've seen the level of quality that we saw from the start. But look, I'm not by any means saying that we're not going to see that. I just think in terms of the balance and in terms of where everybody's at right now, that is the midfield that I would go with. But I do get what you're saying for sure. Maddison from August to November was prime LeBron James. We should try at some point in the season Gray, Sarr, Bergvall. Again, I think there's going to be a lot of who said that. That was Sammy. I think there's going to be a lot of opportunities to kind of rotate in midfield for sure, and I think we'll definitely see that at some point. But yeah, like I said, he couldn't strike it first time. It wasn't a great pass from Sonny for sure. Make sure to like the stream, guys. Make sure to subscribe as well. And again, like I said at the start of the stream, thank you all so much for 2,000 subscribers. It genuinely means the world. 3K next. 3K before the Leicester game, in which we're going to see Bergvall make his debut. So Bergvall here. Again, winning the ball back, getting stuck in, being combative. This is what I loved. This bit of trickery is able to just nip the ball over the player's head there. And this back heel is just filth. Back into Alfie Devine. Again, nice little combination. 1-2 touch into Emerson and just pops it off and goes again. It's just pass and move. He's so busy. Windy from the extra inch labelled him as busy, and that's exactly what he is, in a good way. Actually gives the ball away here, Bergvall, with a sloppy touch. But look at him track the runner. I think this is a Viran Kunda. He goes with him the whole way. That's what I mean. Ange will not mind. I don't mind. We don't mind as fans, players giving the ball away. Just go and win it back. And he tracks him the whole way. Shoulder barge, again, showing that strength against a pacey, strong winger and seeing it off the pitch out of play. Again, Bergvall, I think this is Paulinho at his back again. And just watch what he does. He takes a touch. He takes a touch to almost cushion it. And then on the volley, just pops it off to Devine. And look at the space that opens up in transition for Tottenham. This is the screenshot from the thumbnail. Which, again, shout out to Will Hester on the thumbnails on the 1s and 2s. Been absolutely superb. And again, a reason why the channel has been able to grow so well over the last 2 months. First YouTube video was 2 months ago today, and we're already on 2,000 subscribers. Bergvall here, scanning. Gets the ball, and like I said, on the thumbnail, he's one step ahead. Let me just move my big fat Swede. And I'm not talking about Bergvall, big fat Swede. He's a slight, strong, beautiful player. Scanning here. He sees the space that he wants to get into. Picks the ball up. Bates Lima with kind of that shimmy. Again, the art of the body feint. Someone should make a compilation. Hugo Films, I'm talking to you. Again, you can see I've got a lot of these screenshots from Hugo's comp. I'm sure you guys on Spurs Twitter know Hugo. Lucas Bergvall, the art of the body feint. I need to see it. Just draws him in and just bursts into the space. And again, just a bit like the last clip where we saw him pop it off to Devine and go, and Devine was able to go. Look at the space that kind of opens up in transition with the runners ahead of him, and he carries it forward. Tries a little outside of the foot pass to Mikey Moore. Doesn't quite come off. It hits Lancashire. But again, if he's able to execute that, look at the space that Mikey's in. And again, not too much to shout about from Mikey Moore yesterday, really. I like the rotation with Werner in that second half. I think we just looked a lot better generally, but I think a lot of it was down to that midfield, being able to gain control of the game and then set us up on to play on the counter-attack. And yeah, I think a general point on the youngsters, again, I don't think any youngsters other than Bergvall, obviously, performance stood out too much individually, but I think, again, it's just great to see the kind of application that they've showed to take on board the manager's instructions and the free-flowing way in which they want to play. Again, like I said, this doesn't quite come off, but I'm just so happy that they're kind of having the freedom and expression to try these things. Again here, 50-50 challenge, loose ball from Bayern. Bergvall, again, winning the ball back and just gets us out of trouble. But Bissouma and Bergvall, this was brilliant from Bissouma. Just baits Goretzka into the challenge and goes the other way. And outside of the football, we're going to see so many lovely little outside the foot passes between these two, Bissouma and Bergvall. I'm loving the kind of combination play between Bissouma and Bergvall already. And again, guys, look, this is only a pre-season game. I'm very much looking forward to doing these streams when the Premier League is back, because I genuinely think we can see these two play together. in that first game of the season. I wouldn't say it if I didn't believe it. You know, a lot of Spurs fans, I think, sometimes get a little bit caught up and a bit carried away, but I genuinely believe it. Outside of football, and Bissouma, from Bissouma into Bergvall. And again, Alistair Gold, as I said about this before, Alistair Gold said that in the QPR game, Bissouma took Bergvall away from the huddle after they had it before the game. And it was very much like me and you. You know, if you go, I sit. If you sit, I go. And I think we saw lovely rotation in there. Again, Bissouma Bergvall, under pressure, is able to ride the challenge and get it back into Bissouma for us to go. Again, I think this is what I wanted to show here. Again, it's probably better off just moving myself. Again, reading of the danger here from Bergvall. Loose pass, on it like a flash. And just uses his body cleverly to kind of feint away from Lima. And then it comes to Bissouma. And this is so close to being a perfect pass from Bissouma. And again, if I hide myself there, you can look at the space that opens up for Werner. It's just a bit of an overhit pass. That's probably quite a good way of doing it. Look at the space that opens up for Werner. And again, it's just a little bit overhit. And again, we would have been in. Again, Bergvall, not afraid to get stuck in, wins the ball back. Alfie Devine here. Now he's the one that's dropping into that deeper midfield position. Again, shout out to Alfie Devine. Brilliant pre-season so far. Be very interesting to see what happens with him in terms of his development. He's the one. Bergvall comes out over here onto the right-hand side. Bergvall, again, just able to pop it back off into Devine. And Devine 1-2 touch combination play out to... I think it's probably George Abbott maybe out here or Mikey Moore. One touch, pass and move. And the principles are very much there to see in terms of the way that Ange Postecoglou wants to play. And the way that Lucas Bergvall in particular has taken to that has meant that, in my opinion, he has to start that first game. Let's go to the chat then before we finish up. Guys says, big up Will, 100%. Let's see if Eze arrives first. Could we chuck Eze into the mix for his first game? Who knows? Not sure I see someone's prior club having much of a role in who a first 11 should be. Robert, what do you mean by that there? Sorry. Anders says, Andrew's going to pick the starting 11 that he considers being the best. He's not going to play Maddison just because it's his versus former team. And again, like we said with Maddison last season, Ange Postecoglou wasn't afraid to bench him. He wasn't afraid to drop him towards that end of the season. Bergvall is a perfect Ange player, says El Dante. I totally agree, mate. Robert says, I think the starting lineup in the Bayern friendly at home will tell us a lot. I totally agree. I'm really intrigued for that. If anyone's going to the game, let me know in the chat. Because I will be there and I'm very much looking forward to it. Because I think, like you said, that starting 11 in that game I think is going to dictate a lot. Paul Bean says, I think we need to keep more Lancashire, Donnelly and Devine in the squad. Again, Donnelly impressive yesterday. There was a few lovely bits of footwork. The doggy going to feel like a new signing again, 100%. But again, I think if it is Spence in this first game of the season, say if we let's move a doggy to the bench, and let's bring in Spence into midfield here. I think with what we saw in that second half, I think we should be encouraged by that potentially. I think there's just so much room. This midfield is so fun to me. Again, I think we'll probably will see Romero and Van der Ven start. I'd imagine they'll play in the next game. Against Bayern in some capacity. And again, we're always talking with Tottenham. We're always talking about this box in midfield in terms of playing out. And it just gives you great options here. Bissouma comes in, rotation with Bergvall. Bergvall goes and gets it off Vicario. And Bissouma can then maybe go into his more natural role of a number 8. And again, it's Porro can then be the one that comes in here instead of Sarr. And again, you've still got such a lovely box here to sort of build up and play out with. I love this idea. So Spurs fans, let me know in the comments below what you think in terms of that starting 11 for the first game of the season. That is personally how I would go with it if a doggy is not fit. And then again, it depends. Spurs being very heavily linked with Dominic Solanke. Dominic Solanke not in the squad for Bournemouth today for their pre-season game. So is that move edging closer potentially? Who knows? And then you might see something, because it's not going to be, let's face it, it's not going to be Richarlison. It's not going to be Richarlison. He's not played a single minute in pre-season. So it could be something like this, potentially with Kulu on the bench or Kulu instead of Johnson. That could be how Spurs line up if we bring it back into more of a basic shape, so you guys can understand sort of what I'm getting at a bit better rather than kind of the mental way in which we build up sometimes. kind of looks a bit more like this. I would love to see that first game of the season. I would absolutely love to see that first game of the season. Stu, no, I get you, mate. I get you. All good, bro. All good. They're claiming he's injured. It's very interesting. That is kind of the team I would like to see. Let me know your thoughts on that in the chat, in the comments below. But guys, this has been such a fun stream. I've really, really enjoyed this. That's kind of everything that I wanted to talk about, really. Like I said, thank you all so much for 2,000 subscribers on YouTube. The support over the last 2 months. I started 2 months ago. 2 months ago today, and it's been incredible, really. So I'm massively, massively grateful for that. We hit it yesterday. And there's going to be a Dom Solanke video on the channel tomorrow. I'm going to record that after this, so keep an eye out for that. Again, just a shout out to the kind of the other socials, really. If you guys want to go and check them out, go and follow the TikTok. Go and follow the Twitter page. All of them is in the links in the description. I love doing these. Like I said, there will be streams after every Premier League game, every Europa League game, every Cup game next season, the day after, where we break down what we've learned on YouTube, on here. So make sure you subscribe for that. Make sure to turn the notification bell on to get notified when I upload. And guys, massive, massive shout out to you lot for helping build this fun Spurs community. Like I said, there's been a lot of people in the chat who have kind of come to these streams and said it's kind of refreshing to hear a bit more of an analytical take, you know, a bit more, something that's a bit more positive, something where you can find the positives. I think there's a lot of negativity at the moment with Spurs. So, you know, sometimes it's good to get away from that noise and kind of cut out of it. So, yeah, massively appreciate all you guys. Make sure to subscribe, make sure to like the stream, and have a lovely rest of your Sunday. If you're not watching this on Sunday, if you're watching this tomorrow, have a great week, and up the Spurs. Nice one.